You guys should thank me because for a hot second, this was gonna be the thumbnail. Yeah, I have a sense of humor too. Boy in a skirt. Pᴇʀsᴏ used to be a well-known all-girls school until the school principal thought it was better to allow boys to barge in and ruin the lives of every single girl on campus. It was clearly irritating in your point of view, but a lot of girls in the school didn't fall for the boys' charms, considering the fact that 4 out of 5 of the girls' population swooned over girls, while the other 1/5 either swooned over boys or didn't even swoon over anything at all. You were, name, surname, the athletic third year that students from all departments were in love with. You were part of the soccer team, the football team, baseball team, volleyball team, and you have not even once, fainted because of exhaustion. Why? Because you had the power range of a fucking factory? You were a boy in a skirt, according to the people, because, yeah, girls in Japan wear skirts to school, and plus you acted like a man whenever you played sports. Yuko, over here! You called as you watched your fellow teammate having a hard time scoring. She caught your gaze and you looked as if saying, "You better score this shit." She immediately kicked the ball towards in your direction, hoping you could score on her behalf. You got the ball and quickly ran towards the goal, dodging the enemies with complete ease because you were a boss. As soon as you arrived near, you focused on the net behind the goalkeeper as she watched you with a keen expression. You puffed out some air and kicked that ball so hard with zero mercy that it almost blasted past the goalpost. Yeah, you were that strong. A chorus of cheers and screams reached your ears as you scored the last point. "Finn-senpai!" The girls squealed loudly in unison. Although it was only a practice match between a rivaling school, students wanted to see the game mostly because you were there. You glanced at their direction and they instantly screamed noisily. You winced at the sound and hurriedly turned away. Man, these girls are cray-cray. You were about to head toward the rest of your team when you heard a loud cheer from above. "Yehey, go Finn-chan!" The voice squealed in a high-pitched voice, and it seemed to be louder than the girls cheering for you combined. The girls looked up, throwing nasty glares at said guy, and turned back to cheer even louder. When you looked up to find the source, shielding your eyes from the heat of the sun, you saw a certain flamboyant with a blue bandana wrapped around his forehead, screaming at the top of his lungs whilst holding a large banner that spelled out, "Go Finn-chan!" His eyes caught your eyes, and you both gave a large toothy grin, turning away from sight. You guessed that he was heading downstairs to go and celebrate with you or something. You laughed quietly to yourself. Oikawa Toru, your best bud ever since you guys were in diapers. When he heard that Pᴇʀsᴏ was accepting guys, he literally leaped with joy and immediately transferred. You, of course, were quite glad that he was going to be spending time with you. He was as clingy as a baby koala, and he did not at all understand that you had other priorities and responsibilities to attend to. But he was good company despite his swarm of fangirls that stalked him 24/7. However, the number of fans he had could not defeat yours. "Looks like your admirer came to cheer you on," your friend Yuko said in a teasing voice, draping her arm over your shoulder. You did not blush or do anything because obviously that was fucking early. "Huh? He's my best friend," you countered, turning your head to face her. "So, he clearly loves you." "Of course he loves me. I'm his best friend," you said, confused as to why she kept asking this. She sighed, face-palming as she gave you a look of disbelief. "You're so dense." You stared at her with a puzzled expression. "Finn-chan!" a voice called out, and you averted your gaze to see Oikawa running towards you with the banner still in his hand. You gave him a slight wave. She gave you a large pat on the back with a grin before turning on her heel and walking away toward the rest of the team. "Oh, Toru," you acknowledged. "And what's with the getup?" you asked with a laugh, gesturing to his clothes, which consist of a blue bandana, a white shirt which had the number 1, your jersey number, spelled on it, and some ugly Hawaiian shorts to go along with everything. His eyes twinkled for a moment before replying, "To support you, of course." He was bouncing up and down as if he was waiting for you to compliment his rather creative style today. You teetered quietly. "Thanks, but seriously, it's just a practice match." You didn't need to do all of this and shout so loudly that you could be heard all the way from Alaska. He pouted, lowering the banner. "I just don't want you to be taken away by those girls." He spat the last word, glaring at the girls with furrowed brows, huddled at the sidelines. The girls caught his glare and started yelling insults at him, all at the same time, with their faces contorted into angry, murderous looks. Oikawa incontinently cowered in fear, and when you turned curiously to see what he was groveling at, the girls instantly removed the mad expressions on their faces and smiled like angels, releasing a flowery aura in the atmosphere. "Sadists." Oikawa shivered. You snorted and whirled around to face him. "I'm straight, Toru," you assured him, but he didn't look convinced. "But everyone calls you the boy in the skirt," he whined childishly. "That's just an expression. Everyone knows that I'm not a literal guy." You laughed. That seemed to stop his whining. He stuck his bottom lip out before lowering his head and huffing. "Fine." Then he lifted his head up. "But you promised not to get close or date any of them, right?" You cast at him a look of incredulity. "Are you kidding me?" You facepalmed. "Just promise me." "Fine." You heaved a sigh as you headed your way to the cafeteria without any company. Usually, Oikawa would always accompany every lunchtime, but a wise me was holding him back and is currently in the gym, facing punishment from the evil spiky-haired male for constantly skipping practices. Well, you hoped that the punishment Iwaizumi was giving him wasn't something gay. A part of you screamed "freckle frackle," but you really tried to shove that thought away. You bought your food and sat down on one of the cafeteria chairs, placing the plate on the table. Just when you were about to dig in, a voice stopped you. "Effin-san?" When you looked up, you saw a girl with black shoulder-length hair, holding a bento in her hand. She looked at you with determination, and you didn't know what the heck she was being determined for. You knew she was a second year because you saw her in some of the sophomore activities. You stared at her for a while before smiling politely. Her request was sudden, but you didn't want to act like a rude person. "Yes?" She blushed. "Can I eat with you?" Forgetting about what you promised Oikawa, you said, "Sure." Her eyes immediately brightened as she sat down, placing her bento box on the table. The both of you talked happily as you both munched on your food. Meanwhile, Oikawa was humming happily as he walked toward the cafeteria with his lunch in hand. He knew you were already in the cafeteria, so he decided to find you there. But then, "Vincent, you're so funny." Oikawa immediately stopped in his tracks when he heard a feminine voice utter your name. But he decided to ignore it, chuckling nervously, thinking that his ears were playing games with him. So he continued to walk, trying to rid the thoughts he had in his head. Then he heard your voice. He stopped, and when he heard your voice once again, laughing sheepishly at the girl, he went ballistic and almost decided to start a manhunt. He lifted his head and saw you and a girl laughing. Your elbows rested flatly on the table as you listened to her stories with a grin on your face. She was talking to you with a slight blush. Her lunch lay forgotten on the tables as she gazed at you dreamily, and at that moment, Oikawa realized that he was jealous of a girl, and he was definitely not going to lose you to a girl. A few days had passed, and you and the girl, Mitsuku, had become really good friends. She made you bentos, and that were actually a good thing, considering the fact that you didn't have to spend your money. You could actually save a lot with that, believe it or not. She told you she was struggling in some subjects, and you offered to help her as her new tutor. You were a straight A student. Plus, you were a third year, so that meant your second year lessons would be a bit easier for you to teach. Ah, Evan-san, this is my classroom. Thanks for dropping me by. Mitsuko bowed with a smile. No props, Mitsuko-chan. You grinned, waving slightly. She turned pink and turned to go into her class. Once she was out of sight, you heaved a sigh as you trailed your hand down your hair, turning on your heel to head to your classroom. But then you were stopped by none other than your best friend for life, Oikawa Toru. You raised a brow as you studied his irritated expression, which was directed at the classroom which Mitsuko had entered. Hi? You greeted awkwardly, putting your hand down. His irritated expression faltered as he flashed you a frown. Fin-chan, you promised. What promise? You said with a confused expression, cocking an eyebrow. He gasped dramatically, pointing at you with an accusing finger. Ah! What? You forgot? You continued to stare at him with utter confusion until it suddenly dawned on you like a brick. Oh. You smiled sheepishly. That. Fin-chan, Oikawa whined. You sighed awkwardly. Toru, she's just a friend. It's not like I'm gonna date her or something. Yeah, but don't you trust me? He eyed you for a second before nodding slowly, saying in a small voice, Yes. Okay, good, because I'm tutoring her later. You smiled up at him and started to walk away. You passed by him as he felt the gush of air tingling against his skin lightly. He gasped, What? Okay, just what subject should we do first? You asked Mitsuko with a smile. She averted her gaze and said in a tiny voice, Math? She fiddled with the hem of her shirt as she blushed. Okay then, can you take out your textbook? She nodded and opened her bag, rummaging it carefully. She gripped the book and placed it on the table. She raised her hand to grab her pencil case as well. She placed the pouch on the table and opened it with a hand handling the zipper and another hand holding the fabric to assure that it wouldn't fall off. But the pouch suddenly removed itself from her grip and backflipped towards you, then to the floor. Guess she wasn't holding it tightly. I'll get it, you reassured her. You reached out to get it, and just when you were about to grasp the pouch, you were thrown to the ground aggressively with zero mercy. A pair of hands glued to your wrist to the floor tightly. You winced in pain with your eyes closed, then shot an eye open to slowly see what had happened. Your eyes widened slightly when you saw Mitsuko with a dark expression plastered on her face, currently straddling you whilst pinning your wrist above your head. Mitsuko-chan! You shrieked, surprised. Mitsuko smirked at you before leaning into your face so that you were inches near each other. You flushed almost immediately, squirming in her grip. You tried to loosen her grip on you, but she was mega strong, and you didn't even know. Your breath hitched. What's happening? What are you doing? She pulled back, chuckling quietly. Oh, Fin-san, if only you knew how hot you were, then you probably wouldn't need to know. There was an evil glint in her eyes as she eyed you carefully. You're too naive, Fin-san. You do know almost every single girl on campus is after you, right? She smiled, straddling you dominantly. Your eyes widened at her sudden dominance. Pretending to be a shy girl had to take a lot of willpower, you know. She added, It was hard to hold back. It was difficult for me not to pounce on you like this in public. You laughed nervously, beads of sweat running down your forehead. Please tell me you're joking. She chuckled, pinning you harder with her bare hands. No, I'm not. But I'm straight, you whimpered, trying your best to change her mind. She smirked. Not for long. Not for long. Oikawa heaved a sigh, pouting as he walked through the hallways with furrowed brows. He had his bag hanging around his shoulders with all zippers open, not bothering to close them. "That girl is stealing my Iffenchan away," he thought angrily as he stomped loudly with his feet. He caught the attention of a certain friend of yours, Yuko. "Oh, Oikawa," she greeted with a grin, coming towards him and slinging an arm around him. She had a milk carton in her hand as the straw was bitten abusively by her mouth. "Why aren't you with Effin?" Oikawa grunted. The thought of you and Mitsuko together drove him insane. "She's tutoring Mitsuko," he muttered with a murderous look on his face. Honestly, that girl was getting on his nerves. The milk from Yuko's mouth splattered everywhere like a sprinkler as she looked at Oikawa in disbelief. "Mitsuko?" she stammered, horror written all over her face. Oikawa raised a brow, confused as to why she was acting weirdly. "Yeah, why?" he asked casually. Yuko dropped her milk carton and grabbed Oikawa by the shoulders, shaking him and making him feel a bit dizzy. "Oikawa, Mitsuko is ballistic over Effin. Everyone knows Effin is a hottie and is literally crazy for her, but Mitsuko is insane for her." Oh, I'm not about to say that. You guys can go and read this story. It'll be in the description like it always is. But I'm not about to read this line. Yeah. Because duh, almost every girl is a part of the fan club and news spreads like wildfire here. Mitsuko is the leader and she is not straight. As soon as Oikawa heard this, he shrieked girlishly and panicked, sprinting towards every classroom he could find, trying to search for you. Oh, he hoped she hadn't taken your virginity yet. Oikawa was literally terrified. What if he was too late? What if Mitsuko already know? He heard a distant protest, and he immediately knew it was you. He ran as fast as he could to where the noise was coming from, and alas, he arrived at a deserted classroom. He could hear whimpers and cries, and he wanted to dropkick Mitsuko so bad she'd die. He swung the door open, revealing you with an unbuttoned blouse under a smirking Mitsuko that was currently straddling you. Oikawa's jaw dropped to the floor, and he knew Yuko was not lying when she said this crazy chick wanted to take your virginity away from you. "Let go of her!" Oikawa yelled, and your gazes snapped towards him. You silently thanked the heavens that he'd arrived before Mitsuko took your virginity away. Before Mitsuko could say anything, Oikawa tackled her to the ground and they started having an intense wrestling match. You were unsure of what to do, backed up against the wall, staring horrified at the scene before you. You watched as Mitsuko tried to throw a punch at Oikawa under him. Oikawa dodged her, but not too easily because he was struggling too much to keep her still. Oikawa pinched her sides and Mitsuko screamed, Tarzan style, and threw a fierce punch at Oikawa's face when he was caught off guard. Oya gave her a "you've done it now, bitch" look and RKO'd her so hard she fell unconscious. Oikawa panted and turned to you with concern written all over his face despite his bulging bonk. You just stared at Mitsuko in horror. "Effin-chan, are you okay now?" he asked. Your gaze averted towards him. Your face hardened as you shivered. Oikawa frowned as he kneeled looking at you. "See? I told you shouldn't get close to these girls." You gave him a nod before wrapping your arms around his neck and pulled him into a tight hug. "Thanks," you said, your voice muffled by his hair. Oikawa blushed in response and wrapped his arms around you as well. Let's just say you didn't trust girls after this anymore. Extended ending. "Toru, why are you blushing so much?" you asked him, pulling away with a curious look. Oikawa turned redder as his eyes flashed downward for a second. He shook his head. You shrugged and captured him in another hug, to which he responded immediately. Little did you know that your blouse was unbuttoned. Completely. Yo, Sleepy from the editing process. Just to let you know, and the rest of this is kind of just me ranting, so if you don't want to listen to that, that's completely fine. I just wanted to give you a little warning, because I do talk a lot. Okay, I really liked this fanfiction for the simple fact is, Oikawa is not, overly dominant, and he's not how you say OCC? Yeah, he's not. Wait, is that no? It's OOC, right? Yes. So he's not out of character. Like he's like his girlish, self. He's like, oh, I just like when I was reading this, I was just like, oh my god, Oikawa squealing. Yes, we're here for that. This is yes. But yeah, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I did get home. I did get a little bit of homework done. I did get home. Okay, whatever. You guys don't care about that. But yeah. And somebody did request an Itono one, but they gave like a brief description of what they wanted it to be about. So I'm gonna like try to write that during the weekend and then like post it maybe Sunday or Monday. But yeah, so it's not gonna come out till like Sunday or Monday, maybe even Saturday. But yeah, so feel free to comment another character that you want. Somebody said I should do more haiku, so that's what I'm doing. Yeah. Okay. Have an amazing night, have an amazing morning, have an amazing afternoon, whenever you are, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another fan fiction. Bye!